Hello, hello. I wanted to take you through how I made a couple of the components for this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle cake. Right now, I'm going to be covering my sewer pipe with some gray lines, and I'm just using my ruler to make 1-inch lines. Super easy. And once I decide the length that I need, um, I'll just use some plain water to attach it to each other, and I'm just using another strip so I get equal distance between each line. I'm making this a couple days before the cake is due, so it has some time to set up and dry so I can stand it up against the side of the cake. Then I'm just taking a round piping tip and I'm going to make it like I have little bolts on the side of the little gray pieces. Now we are going to make a manhole cover for our little Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to come out of. And I'm just using this textured mat to give some dimension. And just using my circle cutters to clean up my edges and attaching the pieces with just water. I'm using the same circle piping tip as I did before to make it look like there's little screws or bolts on my little manhole cover. Now we're going to make my favorite part of this whole cake, and it is the pizza. My crust color is just a little bit of brown, some white, tiny bit of yellow, and just a smidge of orange. And this is my cheese, and it's just a little bit of white, yellow, and orange. Now I'm going to add my peppers. Again, these could literally be any shape. I just cut tiny little strips and just cut in little crazy pieces and then just stick them on with water. You can't have pizza, in my opinion, without some olives, so we're just using black fondant to do that with the same round piping tip that I was using before. And then for my pepperonis, I used a little red and some purple and black to get my dark color, and I'm just using a larger circle piping tip to make these. And I'm using my paintbrush to bend them a little bit so it looks like they've curled after they've baked. And some of my favorite parts of cake decorating is just adding the little details, and I'm just using an edible food marker and painting it on and just using water to blend. Now I'm going to show you how I made the little turtle heads. And I just start with the round circle, kind of cone it in my hand. And about halfway in the circle, I'm putting a divot, and that's where the eyes will be. This is just regular fondant. You could use gum paste, modeling chocolate. You could even add Tylose powder to your fondant to make it a little stiffer. That might have helped me. These were pretty soft. But because I was just doing heads, I didn't worry about adding Tylose powder. Just trying to give them a little grimace of a mouth. They all have, such different expressions, so these were fun to make 4 different kinds. Making sure he's kept his shape and he's good to go. Now I'm going to show you how I made their little masks. I just took a thin strip of fondant and folded my edges over in the back and just kind of pinched where you would have the eyes and where it would come around in the back. And I'm just cutting off a little bit of the fondant so there's less bulkage basically on his face. I found that when I wrapped it around, I didn't like how it was sitting in the back, and so I cut the end pieces off and then just attached them flat. And then right here, I'm just making where his eyes will go, and so I was just making little divots. For their eyes, I just used my round piping tip from before and just cut out some white fondant and used water to stick them on. They're really small, and so I'm using my little scribe tool to pick them up so I don't misshape them as I'm moving them. To make their eyes, I'm just using my food marker again to color in black, and I'm just leaving a little white spot for the highlight. I'm also using that same food safe marker to add a little shadow and depth to their faces, and then I use some white fondant and I just stick it in their mouths to give them their teeth. I felt like this cake needed slime, so I just took my buttercream and warmed it up so it was soft. And to get that neon slime color, I just used a little bit of lemon yellow and green. That was it. For my brick color, which I used on the board and bricks on the cake, it's just red, a little bit of purple, and a tiny bit of black. I just use my brick mat and press it in, and I'm just cutting them individually so I can stick them on where I want them. Now I'm just going to attach my name and my number with just some buttercream. I'm just holding a second for it to sit. My cake was chilled, and so I knew that that buttercream would set up quickly. If yours doesn't, just stick a little toothpick underneath the bottom to hold it up as you let it set in the fridge. Now I'm going to put my little turtles on the top of the cake, and because there's not much surface area for them, I'm just adding a small cocktail stick. I just broke them in half essentially, so they have just something to lean back against. We are just now adding final touches to our cake. I'm adding the little hands, if I need a little slime somewhere, if I'm adding a pizza slice. Now we gotta make our pizza crust look baked, so I'm just using a brown edible food marker and coloring on my fondant, and I'm taking just some water and my paintbrush, and I'm just making our crust look baked. It needs to look crispy. This was such a fun cake to make, and if you guys have any questions about any of the details that I've made, just let me know in the comment or send me a message and I would be happy to answer it.